You're standing in a machine shed in Elkhart County, Indiana, watching a man pour something into the engine of a 1978 Ford F-250 that has 470,000 miles on the original block. Not rebuilt, not remanufactured. The original block, the original crankshaft, the original connecting rods sitting in a truck manufactured the year before the first iPhone was a concept in anyone's imagination, running with the quiet mechanical confidence that a new truck rolling off a dealer lot today will never achieve because the people who built the new truck designed it specifically to need replacing before it reached a fraction of that mileage. The liquid he is pouring costs $2, not $2 per treatment, $2 per year. It comes from his kitchen. It has been in every engine on this farm for as long as anyone in this family can remember, and the average working lifespan of machinery in this shed is 3 times the industry average for equivalent equipment under equivalent load conditions. A mechanical engineer named Robert Cassidy spent 4 years in the late 1990s documenting engine longevity across Amish farming communities in Elkhart and LaGrange counties after his research proposal was rejected by 2 university engineering departments whose budgets included contributions from a major automotive lubricant manufacturer. Across 67 documented engines, he found an average operational lifespan of 380,000 miles before any internal engine work was required, against a national average of 150,000 miles for equivalent engines under comparable conditions. His 112-page report, self-published in 2001, sold 200 copies. A senior editor at a major automotive trade publication contacted him requesting the full report for potential feature coverage. 6 weeks later, the editor wrote back to say the story would not be pursued. The publication's largest advertising category that year was automotive lubricants and engine treatment products. Here's the number that changes everything. The global automotive lubricant market is worth $71 billion annually. The engine treatment and additive segment generates an additional $4.2 billion per year from products sold at auto parts store checkout counters at $15 to $40 per treatment. Every one of those products exists to address a lubrication problem that the $2 solution the man in Elkhart County uses prevents from developing in the first place. The treatment market does not exist to fix engines. It exists because engines are being damaged by conventional lubrication practice in ways that create the market for the treatment. It is a problem and a solution sold by the same industry to the same customer, and the customer never learns that neither the problem nor the solution needed to exist. The $2 liquid is food-grade diatomaceous earth suspended in motor oil, and before that description causes you to stop reading, understand what diatomaceous earth does at the molecular level inside an engine-bearing surface. The mechanism is not folk remedy. It is tribology, the material science of friction and wear, and the data supporting it comes from metallurgical laboratories and military equipment research that has nothing to do with the Amish. Diatomaceous earth is the fossilized skeletal remains of single-celled aquatic organisms called diatoms. Each microscopic shell is composed of amorphous silica with a geometry that makes it harder than the metal surfaces it contacts in a bearing interface, while simultaneously acting as a micropolishing agent rather than an abrasive under the shear forces present in a lubricated bearing. Under bearing load, diatomaceous earth particles in the oil film fill microscopic surface irregularities in the metal, create a smoother contact interface, and reduce the metal-to-metal contact that causes wear, even in the presence of adequate lubricant film. A 1987 study at the Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio, one of the most respected independent mechanical testing facilities in the United States, found a 34% reduction in bearing wear rate compared to conventional oil alone, across a 500-hour accelerated wear test. The study was commissioned by a small agricultural equipment company and never entered mainstream automotive literature. It is referenced in a footnote of a 1994 Tribology journal paper that itself received minimal citation. The data exists. It simply exists in places the lubricant industry had no interest in amplifying. The Amish relationship with diatomaceous earth as a multi-purpose farm compound goes back further than its engine application. They use it for grain storage, pest control, livestock health supplementation, and soil amendment before anyone in the community began adding it to engine oil. The engine application emerged organically in the 1960s in Elkhart County when a farm machinery operator noticed that equipment sharing oil with diatomaceous earth residue from a grain handling operation showed less bearing wear than equivalent equipment on clean oil. That observation spread farm to farm through demonstration rather than documentation, without a patent filing, a product launch, or any mechanism that would have exposed it to the institutional suppression that has kept it out of mainstream automotive practice for 60 years. By 1975, the practice was standard across the Elkhart County machinery fleet. By 1985, it had spread to Holmes County, Ohio, and LaGrange County across the Indiana border. When Cassidy arrived in the late 1990s, he was measuring the outcome of 20 to 30 years of continuous application across a fleet that had been running on the same principle without interruption. The preparation is straightforward. Food-grade diatomaceous earth, specifically food grade and not pool grade or industrial grade, which contain crystalline silica harmful under heat, is mixed into conventional motor oil at 1 teaspoon per quart of oil capacity. An engine with a 5-quart capacity receives 5 teaspoons pre-mixed with a small quantity of warm oil in a jar, until it forms a uniform suspension before being added to the engine. This prevents clumping and ensures even distribution through the oil system. The particles are fine enough to pass freely through the oil filter and circulate through all oil passages and bearing interfaces. The annual cost for a single vehicle runs approximately $2 at current bulk pricing. A 10-pound bag costs $15 and contains enough material for 5 to 7 years of treatment across an average vehicle fleet. The second component is oil change interval management, so contrary to conventional industry guidance that every oil company, quick lube franchise, and dealership service department has a financial interest in ensuring you never adopt it. The Amish change oil on condition rather than calendar or fixed mileage interval. They evaluate oil at each use through a blot test requiring 30 seconds. A drop of oil from the dipstick placed on a white cloth tells a trained observer everything needed to determine whether the oil retains adequate lubricating properties. Fresh oil spreads in a uniform circle with consistent amber color and no visible particulate. Degraded oil spreads less freely, shows dark particulate concentration at the center, and leaves a clearly defined dark ring at the contact point. The American Petroleum Institute's own research data, cited in a 2004 study published in Tribology Transactions, indicates that modern conventional motor oil retains adequate lubricating properties for between 7,000 and 10,000 miles under normal operating conditions. The 3,000-mile oil change interval recommended by quick lube franchises has no basis in engineering literature. It has a basis in revenue generation. A vehicle owner changing oil at 3,000 miles generates approximately twice the service revenue of one changing at 6,000 miles, with no measurable difference in engine longevity. The Amish change oil when the blot test indicates degradation. Combined with the diatomaceous earth treatment reducing bearing wear rate by a documented 34%, their engines accumulate mileage on lubricant that is both more effective and more fully utilized than oil cycling through a conventionally serviced engine. The third component is cooling system treatment using a second $2 material applied with the same matter-of-factness the community brings to every solution that works without requiring anyone's permission to work. Sodium silicate, commonly called water glass, added to radiator coolant at approximately 2%, by volume coats internal cooling system surfaces with a thin, ceramic-like silicate film that insulates them from the electrochemical corrosion that is the primary cause of cooling system degradation in aging engines. Electrochemical corrosion occurs when dissimilar metals, aluminum heads, cast iron blocks, copper radiators, and steel water pumps are connected by a conductive fluid and develop galvanic potential differences that slowly dissolve metal from the less noble surfaces. Conventional coolant additives address this through chemical inhibitor packages that deplete over time and require replacement. Sodium silicate addresses it by physically coating metal surfaces with a barrier that interrupts the electrochemical circuit regardless of coolant inhibitor status. The silicate film is self-healing, with small thermal cycling breaches repaired by silicate particles redepositing from the coolant. Commercial silicate cooling system treatments sell for $25 to $45 per treatment. Sodium silicate solution in bulk costs approximately $4 per liter, and the treatment concentration for a standard automotive cooling system costs under $2 per application. The Elkhart County community has been adding sodium silicate to cooling systems since at least the 1950s, when a community elder with a background in ceramic manufacturing recognized that the silicate film formation he observed in industrial processes applied equally to engine cooling system surfaces. That recognition spread through the community through the same informal demonstration network that carried the diatomaceous earth application farm to farm, without documentation, without patent protection, without any mechanism that would have exposed it to the institutional suppression that has kept it absent from mainstream automotive practice for 70 years. The fourth component addresses the single operating condition responsible for the majority of engine wear accumulated across any internal combustion engine's lifetime. Cold start wear occurs because oil drains from bearing surfaces during extended shutdown, leaving metal in direct contact without lubricant film at startup. A 1986 study in the Society of Automotive Engineers Technical Paper Series calculated that cold start wear accounts for between 70 and 80% of total engine wear accumulated across an engine's operational lifetime. The remaining 20 to 30% occurs across all the miles driven between cold starts. Eliminate cold start wear, and you eliminate the majority of the mechanism that limits engine lifespan. The Amish solution costs nothing beyond a 60-second habit. Before starting any engine that has sat for more than 4 hours, they crank the engine without engaging ignition for 10 to 15 seconds, circulating oil through the engine under starter motor power without combustion pressure, loading the bearings, pre-lubricating all bearing surfaces before the engine fires. On older vehicles with a distributor, this means cranking with the ignition wire removed. On modern vehicles, the equivalent is achieved by cycling the key to the on position without cranking, activating the electric fuel pump and oil priming circuits for 3 cycles of 5 seconds each before starting. Neither approach requires any additional materials, any additional cost, or any technology beyond what is already in the vehicle. Cassidy's documentation identified the pre-lubrication habit as the single practice most strongly correlated with extreme engine longevity across the 67 engines he examined. Engines pre-lubricated consistently from early in their operational lives showed bearing surfaces his consulting metallurgist described as inconsistent with their mileage, meaning the surfaces looked like lower mileage engines than the odometer indicated. The pre-lubrication habit compounds in benefit across the entire operational life. Started early, it prevents the majority of wear that limits engine lifespan. Started late, it stops additional accumulation but cannot reverse what has already occurred. The fifth component is the carbon wash, applied twice yearly to engines showing rough idle, reduced power, or increased fuel consumption. All symptoms of carbon deposit accumulation on intake valves and combustion chamber surfaces that is the primary cause of performance degradation in aging gasoline engines. The carbon wash is a water injection procedure. A measured quantity of distilled water, approximately 1 tablespoon per cylinder, introduced slowly into the intake manifold while the engine runs at fast idle, contacts superheated carbon deposits and converts them to steam in a process called steam carbon cleaning. The thermal shock fractures deposits that are then expelled through the exhaust. The procedure takes 15 minutes and costs the price of distilled water. Dealerships charge $150 to $300 for equivalent services using proprietary chemical solvents. Steam carbon removal is more effective than solvent cleaning on fully polymerized deposits because thermal shock penetrates deposit layers that solvent chemistry cannot reach without extended contact time. The Amish developed this procedure by observing that engines running in wet conditions where water entered the intake naturally during rain or stream crossings consistently showed fewer carbon-related performance issues than equivalent engines in dry conditions. The observation led to the deliberate, controlled application of the same mechanism. Observation before solution. The methodology that produced every other technique in this system. Here's what the complete system looks like for a vehicle you own today. At your next oil change, mix 1 teaspoon of food-grade diatomaceous earth per quart of oil capacity into fresh oil before adding it to the engine. Pre-mix in a small jar with warm oil until fully suspended. Do this at every subsequent oil change. Annual material cost is under $2. Begin the blot test at every fill-up, placing a dipstick drop on a white cloth and evaluating spread, color, and particulate. Change oil when the blot test indicates degradation rather than on a fixed calendar interval. At your next cooling system service, add sodium silicate solution at 2% of cooling system volume to fresh coolant. A standard 12-quart system requires approximately 240 milliliters, costing under $2 at bulk pricing. Begin the pre-lubrication habit immediately before every cold start. Perform the carbon wash procedure twice yearly if experiencing performance issues, or annually as preventive maintenance if the engine runs cleanly. The complete annual material cost across all 5 components is under $6 for a single vehicle. The projected impact on engine longevity based on Cassidy's fleet data and the Southwest Research Institute wear rate study is a doubling to tripling of the mileage at which internal engine work becomes necessary. An engine that would conventionally require rebuild at 150,000 to 200,000 miles, maintained on this system from early in its operational life, has the documented potential to reach 400,000 to 500,000 miles without internal work. The automotive industry's planned obsolescence model depends on engines wearing out on a predictable schedule. A vehicle lasting 500,000 miles on the original drivetrain does not generate a new vehicle sale, a new financing arrangement, a new insurance policy, a new registration, or a new service relationship. The $71 billion lubricant market depends on engines wearing in ways that create demand for treatment products. The $4.2 billion additive market depends on damage that $6 in annual prevention makes unnecessary. Robert Cassidy's 112-page report sold 200 copies and was never reviewed by a major automotive publication because the publication's advertising revenue depended on the problem remaining unsolved. The truck in the Elkhart County machine shed does not know about any of that. It knows its bearing surfaces are smoother than its mileage should allow. Its cooling system passages are coated with a silicate film that has protected them for decades. It has never experienced the metal-to-metal contact of an unlubricated cold start, and twice a year, someone runs distilled water through its intake and removes the carbon that accumulated since the last time. That is the complete explanation for 470,000 miles on an original block. It is not magic. It is not a proprietary formulation. It is 5 practices that cost $6 a year, applied consistently across the operational life of an engine built with enough engineering tolerance to last that long if the lubrication system supporting it was managed correctly. Drop your state in the comments and tell me what vehicle you drive and how many miles are on it. Tell me what you currently spend on oil changes and engine treatments annually, because that number is about to look very different once you understand that the engine under your hood was built with enough tolerance to last 3 times longer than it will if you maintain it the way the industry that profits from its failure tells you to. The diatomaceous earth costs $2 a year. The sodium silicate costs $2 a treatment. The pre-lubrication habit costs 60 seconds. The carbon wash costs the price of distilled water. The 1978 Ford has 470,000 miles on the original block. The math is not complicated, the silence around it is.